Hey everyone, today we're going to talk about the difference between fiction and nonfiction. Now, I know some of you are going to say we've been doing this forever, we've been doing it since September, but some of you are still not getting it, you're still a little bit confused, and I can see that in your test scores, so I wanted to revisit this. So don't say that when I ask you, hey, do you understand fiction and nonfiction, are you having trouble? Don't say, no, I'm not having any trouble, because you definitely are, I can see it. So we're going to go over that for just a few minutes today, and then spend some time comparing fiction and nonfiction this week. So in fiction, the author's purpose is to entertain. And even though it might be something emotional or gloomy, it's still to entertain. Some people like that type of thing. So fictional authors purposely write with their audience in mind, and they want to entertain them. Fiction is created in the mind of the author, although some elements like the setting might seem similar to real life. Now, why does that happen? Because fiction authors, even though they make things up, they're inspired by the worlds around them. Remember our Ebola story. A fictional piece is going to include story elements because it's a story. So it's going to have a plot, it's going to have setting and mood, characters and conflict, and theme. So if you're not sure what those terms mean, it's something that you need to review. Did that way back in quarter one. The fictional stories are going to be organized chronologically because they're stories, which means they're going to be told in the order that they happen. Now, sometimes the author is going to include a flashback, and that's because we need information from a prior time period in order to understand what's going on right now, but it's still really told in the order in which it happened, or chronological order. The narrator tells the story, and the narrator is chosen by the author. Don't forget, there's a difference in fiction between the author and the narrator. The author decides who is going to tell their story, and that person is called the narrator of their story. Now, the narrator can tell the story through several points of view. Point of view is the eyes through which the story is being seen and told. So first person point of view means the narrator is in the story and is telling the story. So that's what the author chose. Third person narrator is a narrator that's not in the story at all. It's like someone in the sky is looking down on the events and telling the story to us as they see it happening. And again, that's an author decision. Now, if an author chooses third person point of view, he has to go further and decide if that third person narrator is going to be limited, which means they can only tell the reader what he, she sees, hears, etc. This is not a superhuman narrator. But if the author decides that their narrator is going to be omniscient, that's a third person narrator that's not in the story. And that narrator can tell what the characters see, hear, and also the thoughts and feelings of the characters they get inside the characters' heads. This is like a superhuman narrator, which is actually what omniscient means. It means all-knowing or godlike. And that's what a third-person omniscient narrator can do. So that's fiction in a nutshell. And let's reintroduce you to our stickman author. And remember, the stickman author makes stuff up, even though they might be influenced by the outside world. That's what fiction is. Okay, next we have nonfiction. And nonfiction is very different, guys and gals. The author's purpose is to inform, inspire, persuade, teach, and so much more. So if you feel like you're learning something from what you're reading, it's probably nonfiction. If you feel inspired, probably nonfiction. If you feel like you're being pushed to do something or buy something, like a television commercial, you're probably being persuaded, which is a form of nonfiction. Now, there are certain types of nonfiction that will include some story elements, and the author's purpose will be to entertain. We're not doing that right now. That's for next week, so don't worry about right now. We're talking about strictly informational, persuasive, explanatory type of nonfiction. So method of organization, you have to see a nonfiction cheat sheet. I shared this with you. There's about 8 methods of organization: spatial, chronological is more for stories, spatial, logical, things like that. You need to check out that cheat sheet and see how an author of nonfiction might organize their information and deliver it up to us in a way that makes sense. So think about a newspaper article, a diary, an autobiography, an essay, a recipe, or a textbook. How might those things be organized? If it's a newspaper article, it might have subheadings. A diary might have separate entries, right? There might be steps to a recipe, or information might be arranged in bullets in a textbook. So just use common sense when you're studying nonfiction. The narrator in nonfiction is the same person as the author, because this is true. He can't make somebody up to tell his story. Okay, the only difference here would be if it's a story that someone is telling about the person. Okay, autobiographies, that's what that means. but the narrator is the same person as an author. It's their feelings, thoughts, knowledge, and voice. So there is no change there in nonfiction. Now, the point of view in nonfiction is very different from fiction point of view. For point of view for nonfiction, this is the narrator's, the author's take on the topic. This is how they feel about it. This is their point of view, their feelings about it. So they might be influenced to feel a certain way. For example, if they were previously mugged, they might feel strongly about increasing jail time for those found guilty of theft. So if they wrote a nonfiction piece on increasing jail time, you would know that they were being pushed in that direction by a personal experience. That's their point of view. The way they see it, it can happen to anyone. It happens to them. So for this reason, you may detect bias in nonfiction and be very careful of that, because an author of nonfiction, whether intentionally or unintentionally, may purposely leave out or not purposely leave out information that would sway you another way. They don't want that. They want you to believe what they're telling you. So be careful of bias, and you would use this information to determine author reliability. Can we trust that author? Is he being true and accurate, or is he being biased? And finally, we have graphics, charts, and statistics in nonfiction. So those are a dead ringer for nonfiction. When you see those, it's a clear indication that you're reading nonfiction. And finally, pay attention to style and other elements like repetition and parallelism, which you're going to see in Malala's speech. If you don't know what I'm talking about, wait till you get to your read assignment. So that's nonfiction in a nutshell. I saw a carrot this big. No lie, no lie. Good job, Bunny. All right, that brings us to our last slide. Still not sure about fiction and nonfiction? Very simple. Just think about where you got the piece from. Obviously, if it's from a book of fiction, it's fiction. Well, duh. But what if it's from an encyclopedia? Then you're reading nonfiction. What if it's from a newspaper or a journal? Then it's nonfiction as well. Still not sure? When all else fails, use your brain. What is this? What elements does it have? People, why are you so smart? Because you pay attention to Smitty when she teaches. So that's it, everybody. You know what's up. Quiz time, Mike Wazowski. Dry your eye. You'll do fine. I'll see you in class, everyone.